Hi, this is for especially my anatomy and physiology classes, but I just want to talk for a minute about how to complete your project report. So you may have done some secondhand investigations um, using some YouTube videos or reading articles, doing other secondhand research. And in addition to that, you've done a firsthand investigation, in this case, a heart rate comparison investigation. So you were collecting data on that, and you worked on that for 1.4a, plan your firsthand investigation, and then you also did 1.4b, you conducted your firsthand investigation where you collected data and you also wrote an analysis summary. Now, a lot of students struggled in that analysis area, but did well in the planning a procedure. I just want to jump ahead. We did go over students who were struggling with that, and we went ahead and we identified the plan um, that from someone else. So we watched a video, and I had asked you questions to run through that to get a better understanding of that process, this application of the scientific method. And others of you worked on further heart rate questions, so that would extend you into the future, which we're not in yet, but reasoning out why we got results that we did. But I want to jump to today because we need to prepare a project report. So we're going to use, there's not going to be any new data. You should have already collected your data in 1.4b when you conducted your firsthand investigation. But each student will open their own firsthand heart rate comparison investigation project report. I know that's a mouthful, but it's all there in the title. It's firsthand. That means you did the investigation. You're the one that planned your procedure and collected your data. You're the one who formed your hypothesis. And this is what type of investigation? It is a comparison investigation. Specifically, you were interested in changes. Well, all of our class was interested in changes in heart rate, and your specific question would be identified within this document. So if I were to open this, each student has their own copy, and of course, as usual in my class, when you've read something in red, you must show you've done so by changing the font color to blue, and when specific to your own investigation, you should edit the red with your own hypotheses, data, analysis, and conclusions, but feel free to use my sentence stems. For your grade today, I expect to see red blued, including blanks completed, down to the analysis summary and photographed graph. That means you can take a picture of a graph written on paper and embed that. So I'm just going to go through this really quickly, but I expect you to read the instructions, and I will be able to tell that you've read them when you've changed them all to blue. And right here in define, you don't need to change any of that. You just need to read it. There's no blanks here. You need to read it. Feel free to make changes as you change it to blue. You might want to emphasize certain words, key verbs. This area here is identifying what skills do you need to practice. And I just want to highlight for this specific part of preparing your report for communication, this falls under demonstrating professional standards, including verbal and nonverbal communication in a clear, concise, and effective manner. So you're using verbal skills, as in you're transferring your words from your original plan over to this document, but you're also making adjustments to it to make it clearer, more concise, more effective. And you're also using nonverbal communication. You're organizing it into this template that I've set for you, and you're selecting screenshots and other techniques for communicating in an effective manner, other nonverbal techniques. Okay, You don't need to do anything here except read it and change it to blue. And like I said, you can highlight or embolden things that you think are important to you, that you want to reflect on. Okay, the second part of this, and this is kind of identified here, is evaluation. So we're gonna exhibit the ability to contribute, in particular, as a member of a team. Someone else will give you feedback. But today you're gonna complete this for the purpose of sharing with another student on Thursday or whenever our next class is. Research. I just kept this brief. You can just change all this to blue once you've read it. The L's refer to the levels of thinking, gathering, processing, and applying. And I've used some other words here with that on the side. How to, level 2 is like processes. And so I've identified that. You don't need to change anything here, but if you happen to take some notes when you did your YouTube playlist research, you could add those in here as you like. Next one, this is where you need to make it your own, is on this yellow row. What is the question? And so some students, instead of comparing heart rates between rest and exercise, they compared between rest and playing a musical instrument, or rest and talking to friends, or rest and talking to a crush, or rest and, what was I going to say? Oh, and eating. Okay. So hypothesis also will go along with that question. Mine had to do with 10 burpees per minute. And then procedure, it had to be a minimum of 7 steps. I did 10. It just made sense to break it down exactly like that. You can read mine for an example, but you need to copy and paste your own procedure over here and turn it blue. Here you might, to make sure you're analyzing in a comparison investigation, you should definitely have the word compare in here. You should be comparing heart rates. Different to yours might be, I compared sweat rates. You might have something different in addition to heart rate. That was up to you. I collected data firsthand. You probably have a data table already. Feel free to use that, but feel free to use mine. And you can change this content out for yours. If you need to add or subtract a column, here's how you do that. I might select this column or just put my cursor in that column, but I can select the whole column, and I go to Format. This is on a desktop. I go to Table, and I go to Delete Column, and it disappears. And I'll do Command Z to undo that. But then I can also, if I have an extra variable that I wanted to measure, or extra condition, I can insert column to the right or left. So I can add this column, and so that's what some students did. I'll Command Z, undo that. And here for photos is just choose one screenshot. Previously it asked you to choose 3. And so we were heading toward this point of, you can put all 3 of yours in here. Some of you, it was ideal because you had 3 separate screenshots of 3 different conditions. But don't sweat it. It depends on what type of work you do. This is just kind of a visual representation of how you collected your data. Some students took pictures of just their fingers on their pulse for their photo, and that would be great. So you can choose your best 1 or 3 for that. And then video is not required. Finally, this is, or almost to what you need to get for your presentation, I analyzed my firsthand data. So once you did it, we want you to paste your procedure here again. So I'm pasting my procedure, transferring it over, and I might tighten up the wording to work on my verbal communication. And then over here, I'm doing a summary of collecting my data. So it's a summary discussion of data collection first before my analysis. So I'm putting in sentences longer than my actual steps, because I'm including my actual results in those sentences. So this is like my data table except paragraph form. And then at the very end of it, for mine, record averages in a data table. So I made a graph with that. So you can see my graph if you click this link, the data table and the graph. And I've pasted just the graph part in here. So this is where I asked you just draw a graph and embed it right here in this table, in this column right here. And then finally is your analysis. So you copy and paste your analysis questions again, and over here on the right, here is the analysis based on the data I collected. And so yours, I put a lot of red in here because I really went beyond, right? So you might just say whether your heart rate increased or decreased through the activities you were testing. Mine, I wanted to analyze it in a lot of different ways, and so I got everything to like a percentage, including my sweat rate, and so I could see different rates of increase at different points, 103%, 149%, and a 23% increase. I was interested in that. You didn't have to do that level. You just, to compare, all you need is 2 points of data, heart rate related, and you need to compare those two. What happened between those 2 points of data? What do you observe? You're probably going to observe an increase, although some students, one student took an ice bath and it decreased. So finally, now you may not get finished with all of that in one class period. You might still be working on your graph because that's new. But you should be able to transfer everything over. And before the end of class, this is what I need to see. Here's an example of I have like little sentence stems if you want to use them, but of a reflection, and you can read that. But here's what another student said. A student said, I copied and pasted my hypothesis, procedure, and analysis questions as well as data into the project report. I realized I needed to write my analysis, and I started writing based on my data. My plan for tonight is to make a graph and paste it in. I feel good about presenting my data collection, but need to prepare more on my analysis. So that might be true of a lot of students where they're pasting it over and they realize, oh, well, I thought I was done, but I realize this probably isn't going to communicate to someone else what my analysis is. And so I need to work on that a little bit more before I actually present it. So you need to do this. Sorry, this date will be a little bit different. So just consider this first day, 1.5a, and this next one is when you're going to present to a classmate. So I'll end this there, and I'll share this as a resource. Especially might be helpful for those students who get cut off of the Zoom call. Pay attention, stay safe, and make it whale money.